You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. All right, y'all. According to a report released Thursday by the Samuel DuBois Cook Center on Social Equity at Duke University, man, you talk about this crazy story here. In Chicago, black families lost between $3 to $4 billion in wealth because of predatory housing contracts during the 1950s and 1960s. Between 75% and 95% of homes sold to black families during the 50s and 60s were sold on contract. The price markup on homes sold on contract was 84%. African Americans who bought on contract paid on average an additional $587 in current dollars more a month than they had a conventional mortgage. Joining us right now is Antoine Thompson, Executive Director of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Antoine, this is one of those things that people don't understand when we talk about wealth gap in 2019. This is one of the reasons. And what happens is white folks want us to talk about it. Y'all stop bringing up slavery. And I keep saying, all right, fine. For the purpose of the conversation, I ain't gonna bring up slavery, but you can't ignore what happened during 92 years of Jim Crow. And if you're talking about 50s and 60s, that means that black people who are alive today who were impacted by this generational wealth stolen as a result of racism and white supremacy. Antoine?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I first I want to thank you for having us on the program. Antoine Thompson, National Executive Director, National Association.
Antoine, I covered all that. Go ahead. We're talking about.
Yeah, I want to just first say you are right on about the issue of so often not just conservatives but even some progressive whites often want African Americans to forget about not only slavery but Jim Crow, and the fact that from the freedmen's banks all the way up to the present, there has been this constant effort whenever African Americans try to own land to either give us bad loans, bad mortgages, to shut us out of the mortgage market, and in addition to that, come up with different schemes to take property from us, from our farms all the way to the present with our homes. So this issue about contract loans is not a new thing, and in fact, it's actually on the rise again in the United States of America.
And so how do we take this report and then speak to folks today? Because we're dealing with, obviously, somebody will say, well, that was 50, 60 years ago, really doesn't apply. But the reality is, we look at the home ownership rate today, it's actually lower than it was when the Fair Housing Act was passed in 68.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. So there are a few things. One is that I think, too, some of the things we were talking about earlier, we've got to make sure that African Americans and non-African American elected leaders are doing their job to make sure that we're educating our community about protecting the land that they do own, making sure that fewer African Americans are losing their property because of bad mortgages, because of deed theft as well, which is another thing that's happening across the country, making sure that people are not getting into these contract loans. That's not an old thing. In fact, that is on the rise in many urban and rural communities today for African Americans. So we've got to educate our folks. And then we've got to make sure that the laws that are on the books, that they work for us, because just every 20 years or so, there is another effort to either burn our land, steal our land, give us bad loan products in the 40s, and whether you're looking at the contract loans in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, or if you're looking post Fair Housing Act from 68 to 71, there were a number of bad loan products that were sanctioned by the federal government that were also given to African Americans. And then we talk about in our current era of the early 2000s to the present, when we talk about subprime mortgages, and the fact that many people got bad loans and African Americans disproportionately lost their wealth, lost their homes, destroyed their families, devalued properties and entire neighborhoods. That requires consistent advocacy on behalf of not only our elected officials, but all community stakeholders.
All right, Antoine Thompson, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much with NARAB. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Hey, folks, they're back. MarijuanaStock.org is another great investment opportunity. If you were lucky enough to invest in their last crowdfunding campaign, you know they raised a lot of money in just a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Those initial investors now own shares of a publicly traded company. They are certainly on fire. The last time, of course, many of you missed it. Y'all been emailing me. Now you have an opportunity this time for this new investment opportunity that is as good, if not even better, than the last time. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. For those who don't know, the hemp plant is a cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the United States and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill recently passed in Congress, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all of the plants, and this certainly makes for an incredible investment opportunity. And that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in, and their business model is very simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. And you can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000. Like I said, you don't want to miss out. Many of you did the first time. Now you have a second opportunity to invest. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Folks, if you want to get in the game, you certainly must do it now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.